Hello and welcome to Steps to Healthy Weight Loss. My name is Julio Olivo. Joining me today is Lisa Mitchell-Bennett with the UT School of Public Health. Lisa, welcome.
Thank you.
Today we are talking about making our favorite foods healthier. In our community we eat a lot of red meat, we eat pork, we like butter, we like all these creamy dressings. Why is it important to try to make these foods healthier?
Well, it's really important that we don't try to stop eating all the foods that we like, that we don't kind of go cold turkey, because we'll never be able to sustain that kind of diet. We need to be able to incorporate some of our traditional foods that are in our regular diet that we like, but that are very high calorie, high fat, and try to modify the way that we prepare them so that we can be a little bit healthier, cut calories, cut fat. And one of the things, as you mentioned, is that we do like to eat a lot of meat in our community, right? And so some of the ways that we can modify the way we prepare meat or choose the types of meat that are lower fat include using, instead of ground beef, choosing ground turkey, lean ground turkey breast. That's a really great substitute. Also, we can actually cut the meat off, cut the fat off of our cuts of meat so that before we even prepare them, so that we are eating less of the fat and a little bit more of the lean meat. And always try to choose the meat that is labeled lean as well. And
still try to trim off any little fat that you see on it.
Fat that you see. So that can make a big difference. Again, with the goal of always trying to reduce our calories and our fat intake.
Any more examples on what other foods we could substitute?
Yes, I have quite a list here. For sour cream, I know some of us like to put sour cream on our potatoes and, mix it in with dressings. We can substitute non-fat plain yogurt. You don't want to get the yogurt with the different sugars and flavors, but the non-fat plain can be a great way to cut back on some of the fat, and it tastes just the same. When we're using margarine or butter, and in our baking, we can substitute applesauce. So you cut the amount of butter that you're using in your recipe for cake or whatever you're baking, and you substitute applesauce. And you want to get unsweetened applesauce, of course, because it has less calories and less fat. So that's a great substitute. Another thing that we can do is when we're cooking, use the vegetable cooking spray, either canola or olive oil, and you spray it onto the pan instead of just pouring oil in, so you'll use less of it, but it'll still do the job of keeping things from sticking. Another substitute that we have is if you're going to be using eggs, instead of using the whole egg, you can substitute 2 egg whites or use an egg substitute for that as well. Mayonnaise.
Mayo.
A lot of us love mayo. Mayo is pure fat, basically. So we want to try to substitute it. If we are going to use mayo, use a very little bit, just a little teaspoon, versus a whole dollop or half cup of it. We can also substitute plain low-fat or non-fat yogurt for mayo, and especially in our dressings and our creamy sauces.
Speaking of creamy sauces, people are starting to eat more salads, but they still put the creamy dressings on that. So you're going to want to look for if you really have to have creamy dressing, you're going to look for the low-fat creamy dressing. Another tip is to put it on the side. Don't dump it all over your salad. Just use a little bit on the side and use your fork to dip it, and you'll end up eating less of that creamy dressing. Also, olive oil and balsamic vinegar is a great alternative to those creamy dressings and tastes great on salad. And there are a lot of ways that we can modify. The point is to just not try to change our diet completely, but to make those small changes that we can sustain for the rest of our lives, basically. Okay, like in my case, after I have dinner, I like to have dessert, the sweet. What about the sweets?
Well, first of all, the best dessert that we can have, the most natural, healthy, sweet dessert we can have is a piece of fruit. There's nothing more delicious than biting into a mango or an apple or strawberries. And so we try to eat as much fruit as you can before you eat anything else sweet, and you'll be surprised at how full you feel and how satisfied you are. Also, if we are going to bake, like I mentioned before, we use the substitutes, the applesauce if we're baking a cake. And for butter we can substitute, and we can substitute non-fat yogurt. So those are great tips as well.
Okay, so the options are out there. We just have to look for them, find them, and use them.
That's right.
Lisa, thank you for joining us. This was Steps to Healthy Weight Loss, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.